ॐ सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। We read from the fourth verse. ततः पदं तत्परिमार्गितव्यम् ततः पदं तत्परिमार्गितव्यम् यस्मिन् गता न निवर्तन्ति भूयः यस्मिन् गता न निवर्तन्ति भूयः तमेव चाद्यं पुरुषं प्रपद्ये तमेव चाद्यं पुरुषं प्रपद्ये यतः प्रवृत्तेः प्रसृता पुराणी यतः प्रवृत्तेः प्रसृता पुराणी निर्माणमोहाजितसङ्गदोषाः निर्माणमोहाजितसङ्गदोषाः अध्यात्मनित्या विनिवृत्तकामाः अध्यात्मनित्या विनिवृत्तकामाः द्वन्द्वैर्विमुक्ताः सुखदुःखसंज्ञैः गच्छन्त्यमूढाः पदमव्ययं तत् न तद्भासयते सूर्यः न शशाङ्को न पावकः यद्गत्वा न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम तद्धाम परमं मम तद्मम paramam dhama. That is my parama. Parama means that which is free from every limitation. Paramam deshakala vastu paricheda shunyam. That which is devoid of every limitation. Limitation of time, place or condition. Which means that is obtained at all the times, at all the places and all conditions. Or that which is independent of time for it to be there, independent of place, independent of any condition. That which is self-existing, self-revealing, that is called paramam. That is tadmama paramam dhama. That is my ultimate, most exalted, limitless abode. As I said yesterday, the word dhama also means light. So that is my, then dhama is here means the light which is my swarupa, which is my nature. Here Arjuna, that is my nature, which is of the nature of light or awareness, which is in fact your own self. Tadhama paramam mama. Therefore reaching me as your own self, recognizing your own self as none other than me. When Lord Krishna says I, that can be, the meaning here is in the sense of Param Brahma. Lord Krishna uses the word I also as Ishvara. So question is, what is the difference between Brahma and Ishvara? Brahman alone is called Ishvara. So when we look at Brahma, the adhishthanam, substratum for the whole universe, when we look at it from the standpoint of creation, then, so when we look at the world of creation, then we say this is creation, so there is a creator, there is a sustainer, there is a dissolver, there is an ordainer. We find the world being created, so there must be a creator. We find world being sustained, there must be a sustainer. We find the world being dissolved, there must be a dissolver. We find everything in order, there must be an ordainer. Who can that be? Brahman. Therefore, when we assign these roles to Brahman, which itself is free from every role, which is beyond the role, and in whose presence everything takes place, but still, without it nothing could take place, and therefore, Brahman, as identified with these roles of creation, sustenance, resolution, is called Ishvara. So, Ishvara is one, Ishvara means ruler. So, Brahman is called Ishvara. So, Brahman alone is Ishvara, not that Ishvara is somewhat different. That means that Brahman, in conjunction with this power of creation, sustenance, resolution, Brahman in conjunction with the power called Maya is called Ishvara. Sometimes Lord Krishna talks as Ishvara, sometimes he talks as Brahman. Here, Tadhama Paramam Mama, that is my Paramam Dhama, that is my supreme abode, that is my ultimate nature, which is the light, which is awareness. Here Lord Krishna talks as Param Brahma. By Param Brahma means Nirgunam Brahma, Nirvishesham. So Ishvara is Saguna Brahma or Savishesha Brahma. Brahma with all the Visheshas and Gunas would be called Ishvara. And Brahman, which is beyond the Gunas, is the Nirvishesham Brahma. So that Nirvishesham, devoid of any Vishesha, devoid of any kind of qualifications or attributes, that alone can be Paramam. So that alone can be limitless, which is devoid of any kind of an attribute, because any attribute will make a thing limited. And so that is my ultimate abode, that is my nature, of the nature of light, awareness, the self. Only one thing is of the nature of awareness, and that is self. Only one thing is consciousness, that is myself. Everything else is the object of the consciousness, and that is the object of consciousness, is illumined by consciousness, is inert. Everything else is inert. The only thing that is conscious and consciousness is myself. And therefore Lord Krishna says, that is my abode, that is my nature, which is consciousness, which means that is nothing but the self. How? Natad bhasayate suryaha, the sun does not illumine that, nor does the moon, nor does the fire. All these conventional luminaries, they do not illumine. That means the self or the awareness does not require to be illumined by these luminaries, because it is self-effulgent. The idea is, how do we know? How does the knowledge of self take place? So the knowledge of an object such as a ghata, like an object, like a part. So how does it take place? When I perceive this object through the object of perception, in this case through the organ of perception, in this case eyes. So when the consciousness riding through my eyes contacts this part, and then a thought of the shape of the part takes place in my mind. This part is not self-revealing. This part is what we call inert. Inert is a technical word. Jada is a technical word. Not in the sense of inert that we use in our day-to-day language. Here, in our day-to-day language, sentient and inert, these are the categories. However, when we say word inert or jada in Vedantic sense, jada is that which is paraprakasham, that which is illumined by something else, that which cannot reveal itself. So part falls in this category. Even my body also falls in this category. Mind, everything falls in that category, that they cannot reveal themselves. They require the light of awareness to illumine them. So objects such as a part, ghata, pata, all these objects require the light of awareness to illumine them. Then alone they can become the object of my awareness. If this part is not illumined by the awareness riding through my eyes, there is no way that part will become the object of my knowledge. So many, the world is full of various objects. They don't become the object of my knowledge unless there is a contact awareness with them, and the awareness contacts them through the appropriate sense organ, then alone they become the object of awareness. Thus, all the objects of the world require awareness to reveal them. And that's the reason why we require to use our organs of perception and our mind. There are certain other things like my emotions, like my thoughts. Now I don't have to perceive them, but they also require to be illumined by awareness. And therefore all of them fall in the category of what we call jada or inert. And self is altogether a different category. It is not inert, it is self-effulgent. It does not require any other awareness to illumine awareness. Awareness is self-illuminating, self-revealing. And that is what is meant by saying that the sun or the moon or the fire or the standard luminaries do not illumine that. Because it is. So these luminaries are required to illumine the objects of the world. These luminaries are not required to illumine the self, because it is self-luminous or self-revealing. This Surya, sun, the moon and the fire, at what we call the Adhidaivic level, at the level of the cosmic level, are regular sun, moon and fire, the various luminaries. At the Adhyatmic level, At the level of self also, these words sun, moon and fire have a meaning. They are the presiding deities of corresponding functions in our body. As we know, sun is the presiding deity for the function of sight. It is only by the light of sun that my eyes can perceive, and only when the grace of sun is there that my eyes can see. So, sun stands for the eyes. So, sun at the cosmic level stands for the eyes at the individual level. The moon is said to be the presiding deity of mind. That's why moon is said to be the cosmic mind. Sun is said to be the cosmic eyes. So moon stands for the principle of mind because moon is the presiding deity of the mind. The fire. Anybody remember the fire is the presiding deity of what? Organ of speech. So fire, space, because the fire emerged from the mouth of the Lord. Chandrama manaso jatah chaksho suryo ajayat mukhadindrascha agnischa. Chandrama manasah jatah. It is said that the moon is born of the cosmic mind. Chaksho surya ajayat. The sun is said to be born of the cosmic eyes. Cosmic eyes of the God. Mukhadindrascha agnischa. From mukha, the mouth, where emerged Agni and Indra. The fire and Indra, both of them emerge from the mouth. So fire is the mouth. Mouth means the speech here. So fire is the presiding deity of speech. Sun is the presiding deity of the eyes. Moon is the presiding deity of the mind. So when it is said the sun and the moon and the fire cannot illumine the self, it means the eyes and the mind and the speech cannot illumine the self. That's what it means. Where eyes stand for all the organs of perception. That self of the Atma cannot become the object of knowledge of organs of perception. Atma cannot be objectified with the organs of perception. Naturally. That the eyes are able to see because of the self. What is it that enables eyes to see? What is it that makes it conscious? It is the self because of it the eyes can see. Because of the ears can hear. That is why in Kyonopanishad said, Shrotrasya Shrotram, Manasah Manoyat, Vachoha Vacham, So Pranasya Prana, Chakshusha Chakshuhu. It is that which illumines the Shrotra, the ears. It is that which illumines the mind, and that which illumines the eyes, that which illumines all these faculties, because of which they are able to see. The question was, what is it because of which the eyes see? What is it because of which the ears hear? The answer was, it is the self, because of which the eyes can see, ears can hear, mind can think. Yad vacha anabhidam yena vaga bhyudyate. Naturally, when somebody tries to meditate upon the Atma and wants to know, see the Atma, the usual attempt is to try to visualize Atma. Either I want to see the self or Atma or Brahman through my eyes, or I want to experience it through my organs of perception, or I want to visualize it through my mind, or I want to describe it. And so this verse says no. As Kanopanishad says, na tatra chakshur gacchati, na vag gacchati, na manaha. There the eyes do not reach, the speech do not reach, nor the mind reaches. Yad vacha anabhitam yena vaga bhyunyate, that which cannot be revealed by the speech, but that because of which the speech is revealed. Yad manasar manote yena ahur manomatam, that which cannot be thought of by the mind, but that because of which the mind thinks. See how beautiful it is. Usually my attention is to that which the mind thinks. My preoccupation is what the eyes see, what the mind thinks, what the speech speaks. So Upanishad says, rather than that, shift the focus of your attention to not what the mind thinks, but because of which the mind thinks. Not what the eyes see, but because of which the eyes see. Not what the speech reveals, because of which the speech is revealed. So go from the very object to the subject. So that is what is meant here. That Lord Krishna says that when you attempt to know me, don't try to see me. Natat bhasayate surya. The eyes cannot illumine that. So don't try to see me through your eyes or organs of perception. Na pavakaha. This fire also cannot illumine that. The fire here stands for the organ of speech and all organs of action. Don't try to grasp me with organs of action. Or don't try to describe me in the words. Or don't try to look at me as the meaning of a given word. Na shashankaha, nor the moon can illumine. That means that even the mind cannot objectify it. But Swamiji, then if the mind also cannot know, mind knows it. Understand? The knowledge takes place in the mind, but not in a conventional way. See, when this object is known, then the mind visualizes the object, objectifies. The Atma or the self never becomes an object of the mind. It's not that mind visualizes the Atma, just as mind can visualize other things, mind cannot visualize the self. The very visualizer, the one who uses the mind is the self, and therefore, mind knows, but knows as the very self. Knowledge does take place in the mind. That's why earlier verse 8, Nirmana moha jita sanga dosha. The mind that is an extrovert mind cannot know the self. The mind but that is prepared in this way. Nirmana moha. That mind that is free from mana and moha. Jita sanga dosha. The mind that is free from the dosha, the evil of sanga. Adhyatma nityaha. The mind that is dedicated to the contemplation upon the self. Vinivritta kamaha. The mind that is free from the desires. Dvandvehi vimuktaha, the mind that does not come under the sway of the dvandva, the pairs of opposites. It is that mind that sees. So really when adhikaritvam or the preparedness is described, it is nothing but in the form of the mind. It is the mind that is, see where is the mana and moha? The pride and the delusion is in the mind only. Where is attachment and aversion? Also in the mind, and from there it has to go. So that mind that is thus prepared, that's the mind that sees. So Lord Krishna says that don't try to see me through your eyes, don't try to grasp me through the organs of action, don't try to visualize me by the mind, understand that know me as the very illuminator of the mind. Not as an objective mind, very illuminator of the mind, illuminator of the speech, illuminator of the eyes, as the very subject, as the very awareness. Yad gatvana nivartante, knowing which, knowing the self is the illuminator of all. And knowing the self, therefore, as devoid of any boundaries, devoid of any limitations, because the awareness doesn't have any form. That which illumines all the forms doesn't have a form. The light that illumines all the colors is without the color. The light that illumines the forms is devoid of the forms. Similarly also awareness that illumines all the thoughts of the mind, all the forms, all the attributes, itself is devoid of all the attributes. Hey Arjuna, when you know me to be such, Yad gatva nivartante, then there is no returning back, then all my complexes are gone. So when I recognize myself as a plain awareness, understand when it's awareness, it also means ananda. Sat, Chit and Ananda all go together. Sometimes the knowledge is sometimes the Chit or awareness is emphasized, sometimes Sat is emphasized, sometimes Ananda is emphasized. Taking one of the things for the purpose of inquiry, however, when one is there, rest are all there. So when I know myself as awareness, I know myself as existence, I know myself as fullness. It's known together. Because when I know myself awareness, awareness has no boundaries. It's boundlessness also. And boundlessness is fullness. And what kind of fullness? Uncreated. That's why it is Sat. So Sat Chit Ananda, hey Arjuna, when you come to know yourself as nothing but Brahman, when Sat Chit Ananda, Nanivardante, then you become free from all the complexes, and then you are free from grief and free from all delusion once and for all. That is what is meant by saying that. But again, Yad Gatvana Nivardante, reaching where they do not return. So when these kind of words are used, Yad Gatva, reaching where? It seems to create an impression in your mind that you have to reach that Atma. You have to reach Brahman. And when you reach something, then you will also come back. The rule is that when you reach somewhere, so all reaching, when you go someplace, there is also to be returned. When you rise, there is going to be fall. When there is association, when you rise, you have to fall down, because whatever it is that enables you to rise and stay there, when that force is not there, one comes down. So thus, if I reach Brahman, then definitely I will come back also. How can Lord Krishna say, Yad Gatvana Nivartante, reaching where they do not return? This is a contradiction, understand? Reaching where? They do not return. Because if you reach, there is going to be return. So what is this reaching? Lord Krishna wants to clarify that this is primary sense. As we said, here reaching only means knowing. But if there is something which I already have and I do not know, then I have to know that. Like the 10th man. The 10th man doesn't have to reach the 10th man. 10th man has to know himself to the 10th man. Therefore, in case of what we call the praptasya praptahi, the accomplishment of what is already accomplished. The freedom that I am seeking is already accomplished because that is my nature. The fullness that I am seeking is already accomplished because that is my nature. If it is my nature and still I find bound, that means that there is some obstacle, which is what we call ignorance. So why this creation? Ignorance. Why? The only answer that Vedanta has for the why. Why this creation? Ignorance. Had there been no ignorance, there would be no creation. Any kind of a creation takes place out of ignorance. Any kind of an activity takes place out of ignorance. Unless it's a play, that's all. Other than play. Play is the only activity that takes place out of knowledge. That is, an actor can actually play the role of a beggar, knowing fully well it is not beggar, that's an exception. But we don't call it it's not a real beggar. But any kind of an activity otherwise takes place out of ignorance. Creation also is an activity. What's the cause of this creation? Ignorance. Why ignorance? Then naturally the next second question is, why ignorance? As we said, this question why is only in the realm of ignorance again. Questioning also takes place because of ignorance. You don't understand? If any activity takes place because of ignorance, questioning also is an activity that takes place because of ignorance. And that question can be answered only when ignorance is not there. But anyway, what separates me from Brahman is nothing but ignorance. And that's what Lord Krishna wants to say. That this reaching is not reaching in a primary sense, it is reaching only in the sense of knowledge. And thus, in the next verses now, Lord Krishna wants to reveal the identity between this Jiva and Brahman. So in the next few verses, we have the description of what is a samsaric. How Brahman comes to, who is Swami is samsari? Who is being born? Who is dying? Who is suffering? Who is bound? Who is going to be released? There is only one entity, and that is Brahman. Therefore we only have to say that poor Brahman is only being born and dying and he is bound and he is going to be released. How can it be? Because of ignorance. How can Brahman that is limitless become bound and feel limited? Ignorance. How can the 10th man, he is already 10th man, how can he search for himself? Ignorance. How come I find myself searching for a bunch of keys when it's already with me? In my hand sometimes I am looking for the keys. Ignorance. It is because of ignorance that Brahman, God, becomes a samsari, as though becomes a samsari. The one good thing is that ignorance never really creates anything tangible. It only creates an appearance. Ignorance creates an appearance of snake, not a real snake. Therefore, any creation out of ignorance is always going to be an appearance, never a real creation. And if it is said that the whole creation is out of ignorance, then whatever that is nothing but appearance, never anything real. Therefore, that Jiva is created, you can say. Brahman was born as Jiva. You can say, out of ignorance. That means Jiva is an appearance. And that's what Lord Krishna describes here in his own ways. Say the 7th verse. Mamaivamsho jiva loke Mamaivamsho jiva loke Jiva bhutas sanatanah Jiva bhutas sanatanah Manashasthani indriyani Prakritisthani karshati Mama eva amshaha. This is a very confusing verse, and a verse which has created a lot of debates. Mama eva amshaha. So that's why people, even when after listening to Vedanta also, they always, when they ask question, Swamiji, Vedanta says that I am a part of God. Vedanta does not say that. But somehow that idea that I am a fraction, I am a part of God has become so deeply rooted that that's what we hear. If Vedanta only says that you are not part of God, because God cannot be partitioned. If God could be partitioned, then of course there can be part, but He cannot be partitioned. There cannot be partitions in space, even though we may give different names to the space. We call it hall space and then the lobby space and the outside space. All kinds of designations we may give to the space, and a part space and a fan space and so forth. But in fact the space cannot be divided. It is for our own convenience that we give name to the space. Space cannot be divided. So these walls create an appearance of spaces within these walls, but that is not so. In fact, as we said, the walls are within the space. But it's a matter of perception. If I give reality to the walls, if my attention is focused on the walls, then it looks as though the space is within the walls. When I shift the focus of attention to space, then I realize that the walls are within the space. You know, sometimes it happens at night. In Atma Bodha, this example is given. How a child calls mother and says, Mom, look at this. In a cloudy night, the moon was shining, but there were clouds. And she says, Mom, look, moon is running. Moon was running. Mother says, yeah, that's right. What is running is, the clouds are running. And you see, when our attention is focused on the clouds, it will look as though moon is running, really. It will look. Sometimes when you take your car too close, sometimes into the water, because sometimes you go, the shore is very, you can take your car all the way. It has happened that your car is in the water, and at the bank, the water keeps on coming and going, looks as the car is moving. Literally you feel that you are yourself shaking. In fact, car is steady, and it's water there, but it depends on where your attention is. Sometimes in India, when two trains are standing, side by side, and you are sitting in one train, looks like your train has started moving. Then you look to the other side. It's the other train that is moving. But it looks as though your train is moving. This is called adhyasa, superimposition. How, for example, to us, more familiar example is that of sun. How the sun appears to be moving from east to west. This is a classical example of adhyasa, superimposition. What is superimposed upon what? It's the movement of our motion of earth that is superimposed upon the sun. And sun that is stationary appears to be moving because the motion of the earth is superimposed upon the sun. So how superimposition can create all these delusions? Can create all these wrong notions? Similarly also, in fact, as we said, just as space cannot be partitioned, so also Brahman cannot be partitioned. God cannot be partitioned. And still he says, Mama eva amshaha. Amsha means a part or a fraction, a small fraction of mine. Mama eva, mine alone, not somebody else's. Mama eva amshaha. Jiva bhutaha is of the nature of jiva. Jiva means individual being, individual self, individual soul, whatever you call it. So what we call this individual soul or the individual jiva or the individual self is nothing but mama amshaha, my part. What do you mean your part? We thought that you are indivisible, Lord. Because imagine if really Lord is partition, then what remains of Lord now? If every little creature is an amsha or a part of the Lord, then that means that Lord is totally split. And as more creatures are being born, I guess He is being partitioned more and more. What remains of God? He is not around to say also my amsha, because what happens? So you are not only not divided, you are indivisible. Space is indivisible. So also Brahma or awareness is indivisible. All divisions are within awareness. So how do you, Lord, say that it is your amsha? So we only have to say amshaha iva amshaha, as though a fraction of mine, as though a part of mine. And then Lord Krishna clarifies himself. So this is a verse that is classically quoted by the people who followed Dvaita or the duality and say, look, Lord Krishna himself says that jiva is a part. But But in this verse also Lord Krishna says, last word in the first line, Sanatana, an eternal part of my Sanatana Amshaha. So Amshaha is Sanatana. Sanatana means what? Eternal. Now imagine, how can a part be eternal? Anything that is partition is going to perish. A part is that which has to come to an end sometime. When you cut something into parts, every part will someday come to an end. Lord Krishna says, Sanatana. This part of mine, which is Jiva, is Sanatana, eternal. That means that it is not really a part. Because something to be eternal, it has to be partless. So then why should Lord Krishna use the word Amshaha? Only because that's how I feel. I feel that I am a spark of consciousness. So it is necessary to explain our experiences, not dismiss our experiences. In as much as each one of us feels as separate from everybody else, and we also feel that I am a spark of consciousness. That consciousness is limited only to this body, and therefore if a bullet passes above my head, nothing happens to me because I am confined only to the periphery of the body. And the consciousness that I am is only confined to this periphery, and consciousness that you are is confined to that periphery, and therefore it is only, this thought that I am a limited being, that I am a part of consciousness, that I am a spark of consciousness or limited consciousness is so deeply rooted that Lord Krishna wants to explain that, hey Arjuna, what you look upon as part is not really part, it is Sanatana, it is eternal, it is undivided, and therefore that it is only a notion arising from superimposition. Just as we say, just as you superimpose the motion of the sun, earth upon the sun, and think that the sun is moving, so also we superimpose these walls upon the space and feel the space is divided. And so also here, we feel that the Atma, the consciousness is divided. When do we feel consciousness is divided? Just as when I look at the walls, it looks as though space is divided, and so also when I look at the body, it looks as though consciousness is divided. So when my attention is focused upon the walls, how the space appears divided, similarly also when my attention is focused upon the body, it looks as though the consciousness is divided. And I feel consciousness is within the body. In fact, body is within the consciousness. Just as the walls are within the space, so also the body itself is within the consciousness. Not only this body, all the bodies are objects of my consciousness. So, that which is limitless has to be also indivisible, that has to be partless. And therefore, Lord Krishna says, hey Arjuna, this Jiva thinks that he is a part of me. In fact, it's Sanatana. He is no different from me. Thus, this in one sentence, Lord Krishna in fact declares the identity. Understand? By using the word Sanatana, Sanatana means eternal. That means limitless. And Amsha means a part. That part is nothing but eternal. So one who looks upon oneself as a part is in fact eternal, is in fact limitless. And therefore, all that is necessary to reach the limitless is that we should become free from the notion of being a part. That's all. All that is necessary in our life is to become free from the notion of smallness. One doesn't have to become free from smallness, because there is no smallness in the self. And where the smallness is, nobody can become free. But then, the smallness of the self that is thought of, all you have to do is to become free from the notion of smallness. Anyway, unfortunately, because of ignorance, as we said, Brahman takes itself to be the part of consciousness. Consciousness says that I am a part of consciousness. Understand? How can it be, Swami? That's how it is. What does it do? Who does it? Maya. That's why we call it Maya. Ignorance is called Maya also, because it makes the impossible. So again you want the word Maya. So whenever you use the word Maya, they feel that we're avoiding answer. It's an answer. It's not avoiding the answer. What is Maya? Maya is that aghatita ghatana patiyasi, that which makes impossible possible. Or that which creates an appearance of something which is not there. And therefore, it is Maya that makes that Maya that depends upon the awareness, makes the awareness look as though it is limited. And thus, because of ignorance, I take myself to be limited, and then I become a transmigrating soul. Then I go from one embodiment to the other. And that's the process that Lord Krishna further described day-to-day Vedanta. Vedanta in daily life, this day-to-day thing is described now by Lord Krishna. Let us read the next verse also to understand the second line of this verse. Shariram yadavapnoti, Shariram yadavapnoti, Yachapyutkramati Ishvaraha, Yachapyutkramati Ishvaraha, Gruhitvaitani Sanyati, Gruhitvaitani Sanyati, Vayurgandhani Vashayad, Vayurgandhani Vashayad. Shariram yadavapnoti, Yachchapi utkramati Ishvaraha, when the master leaves the body. So that line is to be taken the second line of the seventh verse. Manashasthani indriyani prakritisthani karshati. This jiva, the soul of the Atma, draws unto himself the organs along with the mind. So point is, when this self departs this body. What do you mean, Swami, self departing the body? You said Atma is all pervasive. How can it depart? Who can depart? That Atma that thinks itself to be small, that is the one that departs. How does the notion of smallness come? Because of identification of the body. And when we use the word body, understand there are two kinds of bodies. There are two bodies here. One is what we call the gross body, other is the subtle body. A body within the body, that is called subtle body. What is called gross? That which is the object of perception is called gross. And that which cannot be perceived by the sense of perception is called subtle. So this body is called gross body because it is an object of perception. Within this body, that is the mind, that is what we call subtle body, consisting of the mind and the sense organs of perception, organs of action, these pranas, all these various faculties which are subtle, which means they cannot be perceived, all of them together is called subtle body. So yacchapi utkramati, when this person leaves, when the jiva leaves this body, that is when the death takes place. What happens when the death takes place? Manashasthani indriyani prakritisthani karshati. This jivatma draws unto himself the subtle body. Subtle body consisting of the mind and sense organs and everything else. Although Lord Krishna mentions only 5 organs of perception in the mind, that is 6, but in fact we should include the whole subtle body. That means subtle body consisting of the mind. And mind includes all this manha, buddhi, chitta, ahankara, everything. And also the organs of perception, organs of action, and the vital forces, prana, all these things, that is called subtle body. He takes it with himself. Shariram yadavapnoti, and he takes up a new body. Gruhitva etani sanyati. So when he departs from this body and acquires a new body, he takes all this baggage with him. He doesn't go alone. He takes all the baggage with him and goes to the other one. And so this transmigration can be compared to a person traveling in trains in India. Imagine a person going from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. He has to change the trains in half a dozen places. So from Kashmir now he is going for a yatra to Kanyakumari with a lot of baggage. He boards the train and comes to some place, Pathankot I guess, where he is to change the train. Along with baggage he gets down, not alone. He doesn't leave the baggage in the train, he gets down along with the baggage. And when he enters the next train, with the baggage he enters. And in India what happens is, while you are traveling the train, there are many vendors that also come in the trains. And when you are traveling the train stops at many stations, and a lot of things are there, a lot of food articles are there, and a lot of other, every place has its own specialty. And so these passengers have nothing else to do. So you know what they do? They keep buying a few things here, and some fruits and some lot of snacks and other things, they keep on buying. Some of them they eat and some of them they accumulate. So the baggage actually increases. Some baggage is utilized, some baggage increases. And now when he leaves this train and goes to other train along with the baggage, when he travels to the next train, he eats away some food and again acquires some more. And that's how the baggage keeps on growing and growing and growing from one train to the other. Except he never reaches. In this case, this embodiment is this train where I already came with the baggage. In course of this life, I exhaust some of the baggage in terms of my karma, and I accumulate more by performing karma, and all that baggage is stored in my subtle body. Along with that, I go to new embodiment. And the new embodiment. When will that Kanyakumari come, I do not know. There, of course, in India, you can reach from Kashmir to Kanyakumari at least in 3-4 days, but here I do not know. So, this keeps on going and going. Kruhitva etani sanyadi. And nobody is but Swamiji. When the death takes place, we don't see the self leaving. So Lord Krishna gives an example. Vayur gandhani vasayat. Like the wind carrying the odor. How the wind goes from one place to the other, carries odor with it. Similarly also the self carries odor. The subtle body carries odor of all the karmas along with it and goes to another embodiment. The idea is that so this is a very clear description of what we call the rebirth, This is a very clear description of the birth, the transmigration process. Not only one birth, there are a series of births taking place. That's the reason why the samsara tree was called avyayam. It was said to be imperishable or is never ending, inexhaustible, undecaying, because this process will go on unless something is done about it. What does he do? When he acquires an embodiment, what does this fellow do? The 9th verse tells us. Shrotram chakshusparshanancha Shrotram chakshusparshanancha Rasanam ghranam evacha Adhisthaya manaschayam Vishayanupasevate Shrotram chakshuhu sparshanam cha rasanam ghranam evacha. That just describes the 5 organs of perception. Shrotram, the faculty of hearing. Chakshuhu, the faculty of seeing. Sparshanam, the faculty of touch. Rasanam, the faculty of smell. Ghranam, the faculty of rasanam, faculty of taste, and ghranam, the faculty of smell. And manascha, and the mind, of course. Adhisthaya. So when he comes to this embodiment, what does he do? Using all of these organs of perception and the mind, Vishayanupasevate, he experiences variety of objects. That's what he does. So having taken an embodiment, he is born with all the baggage, with all the samskaras, with all the tendencies, each one is born. That's the reason why each one is born with the collection of likes and dislikes. Not that we accumulate now, we carry a lot of baggage with us of likes and dislikes also. Of course our parents may have given us a few more, that's possible. But parents have not given us everything. We brought a lot of things that the poor parents can give whatever they want. Still, sometimes parents take all the care to raise the child as best as they can. And still, Swamiji, what did I do? Why is my son like this? Why is my daughter like that? Parents really feel so guilty. They feel so bad. How they fail in parenting their children. I said, look, a parent is like a gardener. What can a gardener do? He takes a seed and sows it in the soil and then provides all the necessary care in terms of water and manure and whatever is required. The plant is protected, the plant is tended, it is supported, everything that is done. And still, Swamiji, all the work that I did, and still I just have a lemon tree which is so big, so sour. What can you do? That's what was in the seed, regardless of what. But it cannot inject the potential. It comes with itself. So what the parents can do is to tend the child. But regardless of what best we do, still the child comes with his own samskaras. And therefore, if each one of his samskar also includes all the likes and dislikes, because it's not that likes and dislikes become manifest when I become 20, they are manifest even at the age of 1. Even the small children also have very distinct, likes and dislikes, and so sometimes even anger and things like that are also quite clear there. Of course, then scientists will say it is because of the father, the genes and whatever it is. But we would say that it is because of what he has brought with him. But Swamiji, how do you explain? The scientists only trace everything to genes, and you trace everything to karma. So how do you explain? The only thing we can say is that the karma brings him to a set of parents where there is a matching, because his karma will bring him to an environment which is only compatible to his nature. Therefore, he gets born to a parent or to parents where there is compatibility of nature. It's not that the parents have imparted in the nature. It is that he has brought this nature with himself, and parents only become just nimitta, become instrumental in just bringing him to life, to manifestation. This is what we say. But anyway, so that's why, and what does he do after coming here? He uses all the organs of perception to experience variety of objects, organs of action to acquire things, uses the mind to gain variety of experiences. This is what he does. This is our day-to-day life. Vishayan upasevate. He enjoys their experiences, variety of objects. Different people do it differently because their samskaras are different. Samskaras mean the tendencies, the past, the baggage is all different. That's why everybody given the same environment, same parents are there, and 6 children are there sometimes. Each one of them is different. Even though parents give them the same kind of care, and every child turns out different because, as we said, they bring with them. That doesn't mean the parents have no responsibility. I'm not saying that they have no responsibility, or that the parents cannot, they can help or hurt the child also. Over and above what he has brought, the parents do supply some more, and that way they can help the child or hurt the child is possible, but still, everything the child is there is not because of parents. Continuing with that, the 10th verse says, Utkramantam sthitam vapi Utkramantam sthitam vapi Bhunjanam va gunanvitam Bhunjanam va gunanvitam Vimudhananupashyanti Vimudhananupashyanti Pashyanti jnana chakshushaha Pashyanti jnana chakshushaha Utkramantam, while leaving this body, sthitam vapi, while residing in this body, bhunjanam va, while experiencing various things, gunanvitam, or while identified with the gunas, means the tendencies of the mind, dispositions of mind. So in short, all the various activities are performed by whom? By Brahman. Who does all this? Who experiences the various objects? Who is good and bad? Who has brought all the samskaras? Who has all the peculiarities of the personality? Who is that? Brahman. Swami is criminal, Brahman. The saint, Brahman. The sinner, Brahman. The doctor, Brahman. An engineer, Brahman. Young, Brahman. Old, Brahman. Man, woman, young, old, whatever it is. Even plants and creatures and insects, whatever it is, all of these, even chair and table, whatever there is nothing but Brahman. Therefore, using the organs of perception in the mind, the one who experiences the various objects of the world, who is that? Nothing but Brahman. Who departs from the body? Brahman. Who enters the body? Brahman. And who does all the vyavahara? Who gets identified with the mind? Brahman. Who suffers the pain? Brahman. So when the mind is in pain, I say I am in pain. Mind is happy, I say I am happy. When the body is old, I say I am old. Body is tall, I say I am tall. Body is sick, I say I am sick. That's called gunanvitam, identifying with the gunas. As I said earlier, this personality is a product of the gunas. The gross body is the product of the tamoguna. The organs of action and prana, product of rajoguna. The organs of perception and mind, the product of sattva guna. So gunanvitam, identifying with these gunas, identifying with the personality, he experiences all of this. Who? Nothing but himself, nothing but the self, which is Brahman. Idea is he is so close to us. He is our very self, and we are aware of it every moment. In fact, he is so close and we are never away from it, and therefore there must be all the opportunity to know him. Vimūఢāha nānupashyanti. And still, those who are vimūఢāha, diversely deluded, nānupashyanti, do not see him. We don't have to go any place to see Brahman or God. Where do we need to go? To ourselves. But unfortunately, mind is not with myself. Mind is vimūಢam. The idea is that it is vividhena mūಢam, variously deluded. Drashta dushta vishaya bhoga balakrusya chetastaya. The poor mind is all the time running away, attracted. Ishta vishaya, desirable object, runs after that. Undesirable, runs away from it. Runs after, runs away. Runs after, runs away. Thus the mind, on account of this ignorance, and on account of all these notions born of ignorance, on account of all the complexes born of ignorance, on account of sense of hollowness and smallness born of ignorance, keeps on running after things to try to become free from their smallness, and therefore doesn't pay attention to where that is, where the real solution is. Just looking in a different place. We tell this story every time, the story of that old woman and the needle. How this old woman once in the evening in her hut dropped her needle while she was doing some stitching work, dropped the needle. Outside the hut there is a street lamp, a lamp post, and she started searching for a needle in the light of the lamp post. And somebody was passing by and saw this old woman searching for the needle and asked her, "Oh ma'am, what are you looking for, Amma?" "I'm looking for my needle. Can you help me?" She says, "Yes." So he also joined the search for the needle. And somebody else was passing by, that person also joined. And soon we had half a dozen fellows all searching for the needle. That time a young boy happens to pass by and sees all these fellows, and he comes to his old woman and says, "Amma, what is it? What happened? What are you searching for?" "Beta, my needle I lost my needle. Can you help me?" "Sure, I'll help you." "Amma, where did you drop the needle?" Inside the hut." "Why are you looking out here?" "Because there is light here. That's why I'm looking out here." When can she find the needle? Never. So poor mind sees light everywhere. Happiness here, happiness there, happiness, light of happiness, security, so forth and so on. And therefore, that's called the reflected happiness, the glitter of happiness. Sometimes a piece of glass glitters even more than diamond, you know that? Kachartham vismrutam ratnam. And therefore, sometimes ratna, the precious stone, is ignored on account of the piece of glass that is so glittering. So also the world of objects seems to glitter with happiness, and therefore mind keeps running after it. And in fact, ignoring, overlooking, in fact, insulting its own self, which is the source of that happiness. Upanishad calls it yekecha atmahano janaha. So these are the people who hurt themselves, who kill themselves or hurt themselves. Thus this mind, because of ignorance, vimūఢāha, running after the objects of the world, running away from oneself. That's what we are doing. Every time I am with myself, I feel uncomfortable, therefore I do something to run away from myself. That uncomfortable self, I don't want to deal with it, and therefore I run away. And then all the activities of seeking sense pleasure, nothing but escape distracts, escaping from one's own self. If I really was with myself, there would have been no need to go any place. The fact that I'm running, I'm going and doing things, that shows I'm escaping from myself. Self-escape, again because of ignorance. And I don't blame, just as that old woman found darkness in her hut, so also when I look at myself, there's only darkness. That's the reason why I go out to the world where there appears to be light. Vimūఢāha nānupashyanti. And therefore, these people who are so variously deluded, they do not see the self, which is ever shining, which is the very self of the one who is enjoying. So I am karta, I am a doer, I am an enjoyer. So doer, what the very self of the doer and enjoyer is what it is. And still, I am searching for it outside. Therefore, don't find it. Pashyanti jnana chakshushaha. However, those with eye of knowledge, jnana chakshusha, with eye of knowledge, they see. That's called the third eye of Lord Shiva. That's the eye of knowledge, from which fire emerges and turns to ashes. That Kamadeva. Kamadeva is Cupid. Kama is avidya, kama karma. Kama stands for avidya there. Kama, the desire, is the direct product of ignorance. So when Lord Shiva, the fire emerging from his third eye, when it turns to ashes, that Kama is nothing but the avidya. That is why this is the fire of knowledge. Pashyandi jnana chakshusha. Those who acquired the eye of knowledge. With the what? The eye of the knowledge is the eye of the scriptures. Pramana janita jnana chakshusha. Pramana. Those who see with the eye of these Upanishads. When I see through the eye of ignorance, of course, all that is there is nothing but diversity, duality, and desirable, undesirable. When I see, look through the eye of the Upanishad, then there is nothing but Brahman. And that is nothing but my own self. Pashyanti jnana chakshusha. So those who have this eye of knowledge, they see as the very self, who is a doer and enjoyer, the very nature of him see as Brahman. The same thing is said in the 11th verse. This jnana chakshusha, with eye of knowledge, explaining that a little further. Yatanto yoginaschainam pasyantyatmanyavasthitam yatantopyakritatmanah nainam pashyantya chetasah Yatantaha yogina chayanam atmanyavasthitam pashyanti. The yogis who are yatantaha, who are striving, who are diligent, enam pashyanti. See this one as existing in themselves, as their own self, as shining as the very self in their own mind. So yogis who have a mind which is an abiding mind, that's called a yogi. So yogi is the one who enjoys a mastery over the mind. One who has a mind that is an abiding upon the self, and is that mind that can see the self. So my mind must be focused to whatever I want to see. If I want to see the self, it must be focused upon the self. If I want to see the world, it must be focused upon the world. So yatantah yoginah, the yogis who have acquired that self-abiding mind. Atmanyavasthitam pashyanti, they see the self as shining in their own heart, in their own intellect. Yatantopi akritatmanah. However, those akritatmanah, those people asamskritatmanah, whose atma, the mind, is not samskritam, is not pure. So those with impure mind, na pashyanti, they do not see. Yatantopi, even though they are striving. Even though they are doing shravanam, listening to scriptures, mananam, reflection, trying to meditate, they do everything. But asamskritatmanah, those whose mind is not prepared, those who do not have a pure mind. Duscharitat anuparataha, those who do not desist from duscharita. Duscharita means papa karma. So those people who do not desist from unbecoming actions. That means when the life does not reflect what it is that I am seeking. So those who still do not desist from adharma, that means those who still the adharma, the unrighteousness keeps on getting reflected in him. Anuparata ashanta darpatmanah, those whose mind is ashantam, that is restless. Darpa means a lot of arrogance. So people having pride, arrogance, a lot of restlessness inside, and those people therefore who do not even get committed to the life of dharma, and therefore those whose mind is extrovert, they do not see the self even though they try. Meaning thereby that it is not only enough that we listen to the scriptures, even study the scriptures, but there must be also a way of life that is compatible to this. Only with a compatible way of life, those who have gained the emotional maturity or antahakana shuddhi, the purified mind, they see. Those who have not purified the mind, in spite of striving, they do not see. Thus Lord Krishna said, how? That self, that Brahman is my very self, closer than the closest. And that can be seen with samskritatma, meaning with a mind that enjoys samskara or purification. Okay. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं वादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः